Hello there folks and welcome to part 25 of our MotoGP 19 career mode. Today we go to the second and third races in our first debut, inaugural, whatever the hell you want to call it, MotoGP season. Now in the first round, as you can see on the top right corner, or kind of the middle of the screen I suppose, we didn't get any points, but we showed ourselves pretty well, to be honest. We had a decent qualifying in 16th, and we dropped in the race down to 18th place, but as you can see our pace was fairly relative with the rest of the field. And the big shock out of it all was that Joan Mir won the first race on the Suzuki in what is effectively his rookie season as well. I know that there's been seasons, of course, in the game, but I don't think the AI changed. So effectively it is his rookie season, because of course all the seasons go along with the 2019 season. There's no driver transfers or anything like that. But today we go to the second and third rounds. We've got the Argentinian GP, and then we go to Cota, which is a circuit I particularly like, and Marc Marquez likes apparently as well. But without any further ado, let's go to Argentina and see how we get on in practice. The track affinity tests have been completed as usual, and amazingly we are at the bottom of the pack like we were in Qatar. I thought it was a little bit more competitive than that. I don't think we've quite got the deficit that we did, that 6/10 deficit to anybody else that we did last time, because I quite fancy myself around this track, unlike I did in Qatar. It's one of my weaker tracks on the calendar. But we're about, I think about, if I remember rightly, we did a 139.1 on our lap, which isn't disgraceful considering the top lap is rids of a 137.4, but what that highlights being the back of the grid with sort of a 1.7 second gap is that this field is mightily competitive. But we're going to set this quick lap simulation, see where that gets. It looks like a pretty strong lap now, halfway through it was 6/10 off, so we're probably looking about a second or 1.2 seconds off that time, which isn't too bad at all. And let's see where that puts us at the end of FP3. It's not going to be a Q2 place, but let's see where we can get for a personal accolade in our second race. Personally, I think that's an absolutely awesome time. That puts us 15th, above both our teammates, I believe. Tito Rabat's a 138.9, and Carol Abraham the same, very close to him. So we've gone 3 attempts quicker than our teammates, which is definitely something to be proud of. Not quite in Q3, obviously, but, you know, sorry, not Q3, Q2. I'm using more of my F1 knowledge there. But not into Q2, but a solid lap, and as you can see, only 4 attempts off that Q2 spot. So with the coming race, it's not too unrealistic to think, especially at tracks like America where I've got pace. It's not too unrealistic to think that we might get the odd Q2 appearance this year, but I suppose we still can. You know, we're in a very strong field in Q2. We've got the likes of Quartararo, Jorge Lorenzo, Joan Mir. I'd say those top 2 spots for the guys getting into Q2 are pretty much locked in. But let's see how we get on. You never know, the sky's the limit. Bank lap time, then after 3 sectors, we're only 4 tenths off the fastest time. Now, we don't know who or what that is, so we're just going to have to bear in mind what seat we set before. We set about a 38.5, didn't we, in the last session? What's it going to be this time? 38.8. So not the strongest lap, but that puts us into 5th place for the moment. We've still got time to do plenty more laps, and there is definitely place we can improve. I mean, that first corner, a little bit wide there, but we went much wider last time, so there's definitely room to improve. We'll do a few laps and see where we get up to. Okay. Wow. 4 tenths up on anything anybody's set in that sector. That's a shock. I didn't quite think we were that quick round here. Obviously, a lot of people that likes for a bat, I can imagine, to set his time yet, but that's not really the competition we're looking at. We're setting our aim high. Let's have a look what the time is going to be. It's a 1:38 dead, and that's the fastest lap of the session with this machine. You know, I really wasn't expecting that at any point in the season. I'm fairly confident that we're not going to get through. I think that the likes of Lorenzo and Quartararo are going to beat that time, but I guess you never know. We might as well go for it. That is something I could never have expected, especially in the second race. We've outclassed everyone in Q1. That's astonishing. Look at that time. 4.5 tenths in MotoGP is a big deal. As you can see, our teammates are way back. It might be time to increase difficulty a little bit again, but I think somebody put in the comments, and they're absolutely right, I suppose. We ought to be proud when we have a good ride, not go, oh, well, it's too easy, but bloody hell, that was a great lap. And we're actually into Q2, something, as I said, I didn't think I'd say just yet. So we're going to try and represent ourselves, do a decent time, and see how far up the grid we can climb. It was a 37.6 we set in that last session. Rins's time is only a 37.3, so we could be well within there. It's all about replicating that lap, I suppose, but it was a blind of a lap, that 37.6. Bear in mind, we set a 38 dead before that, and that was a pretty good lap as well, but that 37.6, I don't know where that come from. But only 2.5 tenths down on one of the fastest bikes on the grid in the first sector. I'll definitely take that. Oh, well, that was short-lived. We've had our first accident on a MotoGP bike. We've come out fairly late into this session, so it's literally just going to be one-shot qualifying, which is a little bit of a disappointment, considering we had got a chance of doing something here, but we might as well just get a nice gap to anybody behind or in front, and get one lap on the board, and see how good that will be. But that's a bit of a disappointment, but at least we know where the limit is now. Jesus! Well, Marquez has just set a completely new pedestal. Jesus Christ, like Marquez usually does. I was getting on my high horse because genuinely we were quickest of anybody in those first 2 sectors. And then Marquez goes a second and a half quicker than anybody else. That being said, if it's only Marquez who's that quick, we could get a mightily good position on the grid. That's not the best way to take that corner. But it's going to be our one lap. Where's it going to put us on this grid? It's P4 for the moment, and P5 it is. Wow. Faster than a cheetah is an achievement we've got. Well, okay, cool. So we're the leading Brit on the grid. Jesus, 5th place in qualifying. That is crazy. I could have never expected that. That is an awesome qualifying, and we're actually nearly the lead Ducati on the grid apart from Dovi. But wow, I think we're only going to go backwards in the race, but I'm really impressed with that, really proud.
Hello and welcome to the Termas de Rio Hondo circuit in Argentina for live coverage of the MotoGP race. The skies over the track are clear of clouds, and the latest weather reports forecast temperatures in line with the seasonal average.
Here we go then, and something I wasn't expecting to say by any stretch. In our second MotoGP race on a Real Aventia bike, just to get this straight, it's a year-old bike. It's down on what the proper package should be, but we start on the second row. We are the second Ducati on the grid. The only Ducati that's beat us, oh well timed, is this man, Dovi. We start just behind him. We are really in the big leagues now. Really, really in the big leagues. But here we go. Here's the grid for the Argentinian Grand Prix. We've got Marquez on pole, Dovi second, and Alexander Rins in third. Rossi starts fourth. We're alongside him in fifth, and Jack Miller finishes the second row on the Ducati. We've got Petrucci, Crutchlow and Vinales on the third row. For good qualifying for Spargro on the fourth row, but Johan Mir, poor qualifying for him. And that same goes for Jorge Lorenzo and Nakagami, really. But decent attempts from the likes of Spargro on the KTM and from Bagnaia. And Johan Zarco rounds out the grid. It's a bit of a shock. But Ionono still not on the pace of his teammate who qualifies much further up than him. But we take the lead on that warm-up lap. I think we'd be completely starstruck if we were leading after the first lap. But let's see how we get on. As I say, the sky's the limit. We should have no fear.
Everything here is ready to start the race at Termas de Rio Hondo. Riders just have one more thing on their mind now.
That looks so out of place, that bike does on the second row. But am I bothered? Of course not. Got to get the start right, which is something we've struggled with. But let's just focus. Focus on ourselves. The lights are out, and away we go. Great start for Valentino Rossi. And as you can see, we don't even put much acceleration into it, and the bike just wheelies like mad. But get through this first corner, we should be alright. We practically lost all ground in that we made up in qualifying. That's so sad. Down to 21st place. We just got completely mugged on the grid by anybody. So it is a case of just trying to build back up. But it does show you can have a great qualifying, but you've got to get all elements of your race correct. You know, the start, the end, everything. It's all got to be right, or else we're down in 21st. That's up to 20th. Now, if you remember watching our Argentina videos before, you'll know that we pick up a lot of speed on the straights, purely because we accelerate out quicker than the AI do, it seems. So we can pick up 1 or 2 spots here, although we do nudge Zarco out a bit and do run a little bit wide, and we are back down to 20th, and Nakagami is ahead, and as you can see, even in third gear, we're wheelie on the straight, so this race pace really isn't anywhere near as good as what our quali pace was. But it's tough when you take different lines to the rest, trying to adjust to a race situation. But that's a little bit slippy coming out of there. There's the Aprilia of Espargaro! Well, that was just ridiculous. We went to the left. We went too far to the left, really. And that, after, well, I said leading after the first lap. We have come crashing down to the back of the grid. Oh, that's disappointing. But it's a reality check. We're on a Real Avintia bike. We shouldn't be up in 5th. It's a great achievement. But really, it's not something we should do. And Valentino Rossi made a great start, and that's been proven. He's up to the top of the grid. And the pole sitter Marquez is in 2nd. And Alex Rins down to 6th. That's a terrible start for us. And really, again, it's going to be like Cato. It's going to be a bit of a test session, this is now. But what we need to do massively, work on those starts. It's been a very uneventful Grand Prix from that crash on. We just haven't been able to catch up to the pack, ultimately. It seems everybody's improved their pace, and we can't catch up at all. I mean, we're setting about 39s. We were doing 37s in qualifying and practice. I don't know if that's harmed our confidence at all. I'm not really sure. Or whether the motivation's gone a little bit, because there's nothing to fight for. I mean, for goodness sake, we're 6 seconds behind now. We're not going to catch up to that. We can pick off people who have fell off, and interestingly, I'm the only one who's had a fall this race, which is something I think the developers need to sort out, because it's not that usual. It's not that common that you have a race where nobody falls. Obviously, me not being the AI, it's, you know, nobody's fell. But no, an interesting weekend. Very good qualifying. Completely the opposite in the race. Bit of a shame, really. But I think I will increase difficulty just slightly by a few bars. Just to make it a little bit harder in qualifying. But I think we'll be able to compete in the race fine in the next few rounds. But ultimately, we are the bottom team. So we've got to reflect that, I think, in the difficulty. I think getting up to the 2nd row is probably a little bit ridiculous for this point in the series. But that being said, I think we did that on our own merit in some ways as well. Looks like we've got Tito Rabat just ahead of us, but I don't quite know who's leading. I think it's Rossi still after that first lap, but I can't be exactly sure. I'm sure we'll know who's on the GP, and right on time it's Valentino Rossi after a poor race last time out, really. Started on pole and only finished 10th place, but it is Valentino. It was a great start. We saw that from just alongside us, and now, you know, the opposite can two riders' races go, starting on the same road. But we come around the last corner. It wasn't a great Grand Prix, but a good weekend in terms of progress. But that one crash really marred everything, so a bit of a shame. They come across the line. In last place, Marquez finishes 2nd, with Dovi setting the fastest lap in 3rd place. Petrucci 4th, Rins 5th, and Miller 6th. Good showing from the Yamaha boys, with Morbidelli and Quattararo, and Jorge Lorenzo going into the points as well. Nakagami picking up the last solitary points. Interesting. So the championship now looks like this. Marquez pulling out a bit of a lead. That's not really much of a surprise. But in the constructors, we have Suzuki still top of the pile. So now we go to America. That is very much Marquez's home ground. How can we get on there? Let's have a look. So we have got enough development points to make our first upgrade on the bike. And I think it is going to be anti-wheelie, because we're struggling with that. We really are trying to keep the bike down, but I think the bike's got clear pace, so I don't think it needs that performance boost just at the moment. And we'll focus on rideability more than that. Not a great FP3 here in America by any stretch of the imagination. We've moved the difficulty up just slightly by 2 steps from 113% to 115%, but to be quite honest, I've had absolutely no rhythm around this track. I don't know what it is. I've gone through it with the engineer and made a few tweaks. We're actually going to have to take up about half of Q1 as well to make some other tweaks to the bike. We didn't have enough time in FP3. But hopefully we can get into much more of a rhythm. As you can see, we're way off anybody else. 1.3 seconds just off Javi Shirin at the back of the grid. But the usual names you'd expect into Q2. You've got a few tough ones to get past, though, in Q1. As usual, the likes of Bagnaia, Johan Mir, Quattararo and Lorenzo. So it's going to be a tough Q1, but let's see if we can represent ourselves fairly well. One pleasing thing to note is that the bike, it's feeling great, or it's feeling a lot better than it was anyway already, because it just seemed quite understeery. And when we got on the power, the bike would just slide like mad. It just wobble incredibly. So we've made some improvements on that end, and it really seems like the bike has improved. So we can definitely compete a lot more readily now. Coming around the last few corners for our first bank lap. We're about 2 seconds off the pace, it looks like, which, depending on what the pace is, I don't think that's all too bad. Soon as this is one of the longer tracks of the season. It was a 2:08.3, wasn't it, we set in the last session? Actually, we haven't gone any better than that, which is disappointing, considering the bike felt a lot better as well than it did before. So I suppose it's just time to try and push like we couldn't before because of the restrictions we had with the bike. So we're going to try and push. We've got 3 or 4 laps see what we can do, but at the moment it's not looking fantastic. That's a decent improvement, 8 tenths per second, but doesn't improve our position. I mean, we still are 2.7 seconds off the pace. I know we've increased difficulty a little bit, but this is, well, how much different is it to, to Argentina? It's almost the opposite. It's crazy how different those two situations are. But it's just not suiting us, this track. It's really not. It's not suiting our good spots as a rider, even though before on the bikes with a little less power, it really has supported us. And I think it's just because we try and get too much out of the corners, and where we were gaining before on acceleration, these bikes just can't cope with. But in the first sector, that's not a bad first sector. I mean, on the first lap, we were a second off in that first sector. So we're doing well in that sector. It's all about hooking a lap up together, I suppose. But already being 4 tenths a second down just in the first 30 seconds, it's not going to stand you in good stead to be all that competitive. That's a bit more competitive, 207.1. We've managed to get off the bottom spot on the grid, which I suppose is something. We've got 2 more laps left. Let's see what progress we can make. But probably you'll have to see where we qualify when we get to the race. But that's not the best way to exit the second corner.
Hello from Austin. We're here in Texas. In just a few minutes, we'll be bringing you the MotoGP race. After the rain a few hours ago, the skies have finally cleared up. But there hasn't been enough time between the rainfall and the start of the race to let the track dry out. This means that the race has been declared wet, leaving the choice of most suitable tyres to each individual rider.
Oh, for crying out loud. Oh, I hardly got any grip in the dry. Oh, no. Oh, now it's wet. Well, this could be a masterstroke. Or just dreadful. I mean, the skies look okay, so it looks like it's just damp more than anything else, which I could probably deal with. Now, I think we are pretty much set to one sort of tyre. We'll have a look, though. Yeah, well, we can go with soft or medium tyre. So they reckon to go with soft, and yeah, that's fair enough. So I think, yeah, we will go with the soft. Let's have a look if there's anything we can do here. I'd say we probably need to sort the first gear out and just make it lower, because we could just slip off the line very, very easily. As you can see, we're being interviewed on the grid, right from the back of the grid. Even though, to be fair, we were quite competitive compared to what we were before. We were only 2 tenths off Ian Ona, I believe, who starts in 22nd place. And that's not too shabby at all, really. It's going to take a bit of time to get used to this new difficulty level. But equally, this is a really tricky track. And in the wet, this is going to test us even more. But at least starting at the back, there's nothing we can lose. We've lost plenty of space on the start prior, but all we can do now, we've got no pressure from anybody behind, so we can just focus on trying to get our start as good as possible. But in the wet, that's a new added element, I suppose. But no pressure today. We're starting at the back. We can only go forward. Looks like Alex Rins is on pole. That's a brilliant start for him with Dovi and Rossi on the front row. Surprised that Marquez isn't on the front row at his favourite track. He starts in P4 though, just behind those guys. So, clutches on. Very few revs here. And we are away. I mean, look at that. Look at that start. We've just completely, not butchered it completely, but fell back quite a bit compared to everybody else. But let's just keep it focused in the first corner. There's always a chance to pick up 1 or 2 spots, particularly if you nip it up the inside, which is a very good move. But just trying to keep it stable, which luckily we have. We shifted into second gear very quickly there. And we're picking off a few spots. That's Suzuki. I would presume Jorge Mir. It can't have been the pole sitter of Alex Rins has had that much of a terrible start. But we've been shoved a little bit by Johan Mir, forcing us to the inside and actually cutting that corner a little bit. But Fabio Quartararo falls back, as well as Bagnaia, which is a little bit of a surprise. He was probably caught up at the start of the race. That's our teammate, Tito Rabat, on the bike in front. But Tito Rabat goes for it on Jorge Mir and actually gets past Nakagami while he's at it. We're going to take a bit of inspiration from him, but unfortunately Nakagami gets straight packed past Tito. It's really tricky to drive this. It's really tricky just to control the bike, never mind try and make spots. But on the start, we've done pretty well, to be quite honest, from last all the way up to 18th. Now, you can make a risky move coming into this corner. Nakagami's broke ridiculously early, and in fact, we're going to try and get up the inside. Luckily, don't hit the rear tyre. That was crucial of the bike in front, whoever that was in P15. But we just went on a complete go-slow going out the corner. Honestly, I don't know what the hell happened there. But we seem to be a lot slower than anybody else. Now, this corner is nasty. It's really tricky, so we're just going to get off and almost do the lift and coast that Formula 1 drivers do, because you don't know what the grip's going to be like into this corner, and you can go very, very wide, very, very quickly. But coming up to the end of the first lap. We've made progress. We've got Quartararo dancing up the inside of us, but we get that position back purely off the whole brake early, get out the corner procedure. But Jorge, I keep saying Jorge Mir, I don't know why. Johan Mir up the inside of Nakagami, he takes that place successfully. But we are struggling visibly from the fact that everybody else can get out the corners and get into the corners so much quicker. I mean, Quartararo's mugged us there. Just had no defence on him. But maybe coming onto the first straight, we might have a chance. Our straight line speed is pretty good usually because we can accelerate out of corners. But Nakagami, not a great entry for him to that corner. But we're just a little bit slow. That's all I can say really. But we're not expected to be that high. Valentino Rossi leading Alex Rins. But let's see how we get on. I mean, we are a full 7 seconds slower than Valentino Rossi on that first lap. That just highlights how much of a gap there is between the top guys and the bottom guys, particularly in the wet, and somebody with as much experience than Valentino Rossi has compared to us with our first ever wet race on MotoGP 19 and with the MotoGP bikes, of course. But no, we're struggling to keep pace with the guys in front, you can see, but we're keeping it fairly competitive. I mean, you've got the guys behind who aren't exactly on our backside, so as I said, just try and keep it competitive and see if we can make any gains. Nearly a lap's passed, as you can see, we're on the end of the second lap, and to be fair, we've kept pace with Quartararo in this group. It's keeping a safe distance, that's all I'd say. I don't think we're quite on the back of him, even though we pretty much tapped him into that last corner. That certainly didn't help anything. But definitely decreasing that gear ratio of first gear really helps, just to keep a lid on the acceleration out of corners. It does leave us a little bit further back than everybody else, but just means we don't have to control the bike as much. Nakagami into that first corner, very slow, but looks like whoever that is, it looks like a KTM, might even be Oliveira. It's going to be Oliveira or Shireen. It is Elson Oliveira, and he's caught up fairly quickly to us, to be fair. Must have made a bit of a mistake, must we, because we fell back a little bit on this Quartararo, Nakagami, Johan Mir group, etc. But through the S's, we do gain a little bit on those guys, to be fair, so our mid-corner control, I'd say, is fairly good, but we are lacking in terms of getting out the corners because our grip is not very good, and that's not a very good cut to the corner, but looks like we haven't been given a penalty for that, so I can't argue. We usually are given pretty strict penalties for cutting corners, but on this occasion doesn't seem like that is the case. But once again, a little bit like Argentina, it's going to turn into a bit of a test session this. It's going to take a few races to get into MotoGP. We've had our highlights. We had the brilliant highlight, of course, of qualifying in P5. Oh, well, that's not a highlight. That's not a highlight, really not. Just like Argentina. One mistake and your race is ruined. That's a real shame because we were keeping it competitive. We were just behind Quartararo on machinery that's pretty worse, I'd say. A lot worse than Quartararo, really. And we've lost a lot of ground, and that's a real shame. On the final lap then, and unfortunately we haven't made any more progress. That's a real shame, but we got that corner completely wrong. I just think at the end of the day, when you fall off the bike and you've got nobody ahead and you've got nothing to fight for, you lose all confidence, and with losing confidence, you lose pace, and as a result, that gap just gets bigger. But the big kick in the teeth, it's great for the team, is that both of our teammates are going to score points today. Looks like we've got Abraham in 13th and Tito Rabat in 15th. But at the end of the day, we've got to just drive our own races. We know we've got the ability. It's just tricky to get used to that format where in Moto2 and Moto3 and even the Rookies Cup we rose to the top fairly quickly. Of course, we're never going to do that in MotoGP, particularly on inferior machinery like this. But we've just got to prove to the team and to all other prospective teams that we can be a good rider. Rabat goes up to 14th, that's great to see for him, and Abraham in 15th. So 3 points for the team today, that's great stuff, but not a good ride from us, but at least we finished the race, I suppose. But in line of what you guys said, we are going to do 3 races today, and just do it as a bit of a trial today and see how we get on. So we will be moving to Jerez in just a second, but Rossi wins a second race in a row. Rins and Miller share the podium. Even a bit of a surprise that Marc Marquez didn't reign supreme round this track. Cal Crutchlow sets the fastest lap in 6th place. Lorenzo taking 10th, that's a good result for him. Petruk's not a great result for him really on the factory Ducati in 13th. But a good race for Mignone up in 15th on that Aprilia. From where he started, but Nakagami, Quartararo and Bagnaia, not a fantastic GP for them, and of course not a fantastic GP for us. And I'd presume we, do find ourselves down in last, along with Zarco, Abraham. Did Abraham not get a point in the end? Oh, that's a shame. Must have dropped to 16th at the end of the race, but Tito has scored 6 points so far this season. So now we move on to the 4th race of the season, hopefully a bit of a happier hunting ground than the Americas, and that's Jerez. Oh, I did panic and thought I'd got terrible at this game over 2 races, but luckily, this feels pretty good, this track does. It feels like a pretty good few laps we've had here. And yeah, it feels like we're on decent pace. We're just about going to scrape into that time threshold, to be fair. But it feels a lot better than it did in America, and that's got to be a big confidence boost. The team are getting tight in these quick lap simulations. 40.2 is our aim. We set, I think it was a 41.7 on the quick lap simulations, or something along those lines. We're about 2 seconds off, and that's a massive gain to be made. And you're 1.2 seconds off the lead bike, which funnily enough is Jack Miller. That's quite a surprise on that Pramac bike, and well, this lap's not going to cut it. We're already 8 tenths off. Well, amazingly, we've done it. I don't know how on earth we did that. We were 8 tenths down in the first sector. I don't know what that time was. We certainly beat it. Oh. Why did it say Jack Miller's got the fastest lap? That was just a plain lie. I got all excited then. I'm sure it said a 39 dead, didn't it? Oh, it's a 38 dead that Alex Rins has got. So after all that excitement, we're only up to 22nd. Oh, dearie me. There we go. Up the field a bit more now. I mean, it's really tight. I mean, it's a 39.5 that put us 22nd. Now, with a 2/10 improvement, that puts us 19th. We might as well go for it in this practice session. It'd be good for Jerez to be a good standpoint, and a good point that we can perhaps get our first points maybe this weekend. But we're only going to do that through getting some good laps done in practice, potentially getting a good spot in Q1, and seeing if we can actually compete with the guys before that session, and then replicating it in the session, and hopefully just getting a good grid spot and having a good weekend. That's what we need definitely after that dreadful weekend in America. Well, that's a hell of a lot better. We've actually beat that so-called fast lap of Jack Miller. We're up to P12 now. We're really making some good progress. That's what consistency is about. I mean, we've got this race simulation, which I don't really tend to do. I don't really tend to do this one, but it's really helping, to be honest. Really helping to get some consistent lap times in practice. Okay, breathe. We're in P5. Right, well, brilliant. But is that going to be enough for Q2? It is. Wow. Yeah, I couldn't have dreamt of that. We just got some really good laps on the board, and it seems we just got on with it, and we set some really good laps, improved over time, and our 2 teammates are a full second behind that. I think that's definitely something to be proud of. So for the second time in 4 races, it seems like those even-numbered races are bringing some pretty good fortune in qualifying, but let's see how we get on in Q2. Bank a lap time then in Q2, and don't be fooled, yeah, those are fastest sectors. I'm trying not to be phased by those, but let's see how we get on at the end of this lap. Right. Okay. There's still a long time left in this session, but we have the fastest lap. Oh, you guys will be saying down in the comments, oh, you've changed difficulty massively, and it's completely understandable. How can you go from being last one weekend to quite literally being top of the pile? It's crazy, but that's MotoGP for you.
Hello and welcome to the Jerez de la Frontera circuit. Just a few more minutes before the MotoGP Spanish Grand Prix finally begins. As you can see from the footage, the skies are clear at the moment, but there is still a thick layer of water on the track that will give the riders a very hard time.
Not again. Why? Why? Oh, for Christ's sake. Oh, you're repeating yourself, Keith. But Marquez is on pole for the first of his home races this season. He's looking very tense. Where did we qualify, though, in the end? Dovi starts second. And, yeah, it's a good start for Dovi. Usual on the front row for him. Interesting not to see Valentino Rossi or Alex Rins in there. And then we cut to Cara Abraham in 20th. That makes complete sense. Right, there we are. Front row. Yeah, quite unbelievable. Literally minutely ahead of Rins and Rossi. But it's just crazy. The stuff of dreams. Your 4th MotoGP race and we're on the 4th row, on the first row even. And, well, that's a great line from Cal Crutchlow through that first corner. Straight into the wall. Oh, dear. But, yeah, we're bound to lose place on this start. We've just got to try and get these starts mastered, or else qualifying's going to turn into stuff with us a little bit of a waste of time. But let's see how we get on the start. This is the stuff of dreams. We can't get all caught up in the moment, but it's as well. It's not going to make things any easier. Not having a good start to our career in MotoGP in terms of that. But we start on the front row. Let's see how we get on. Right, a bit more power, I think. A bit mid-power. Go. 6 laps. We are away. That's a much better start. That'll do. It's a much better GP start than we've had so far. Alex Rins and Vinales getting in there. We've got a few coming up the inside. Going to get wedged between Marc Marquez and anybody else. Just want to fight our own race. Bear in mind, I guess that unless FP1 and FP2 wet, nobody else had experience in these conditions. That KTM has flew up the grid. Very impressive start from him and from the Aprilia. And who's that? That must be Jack Miller, I'm guessing, going up the inside of us into 9th place. Valentino Rossi must have had a fall at the start, or an absolutely dreadful start, because he's all the way down in 21st. It's actually Pecco Bagnaia who's ahead of us. That's a big surprise, considering Jack Miller usually beats him by quite a way. But as you can visibly see, certainly on this first lap, we haven't quite got the pace in this wet weather, but still to be in 10th place, the stuff of dreams, and we've just got to keep it controlled on the bike, just to make sure we stay in the running. But everybody gone wide, including us. We push Bagnaia even wider, bless him, and that means Jack Miller goes ahead of the both of us. But Pol Espargaro on the KTM in 8th place is a huge result for those. Definitely overshadows what we've done, getting up to 10th place. But it looks like Valentino Rossi is making moves very quickly. But there's only 6 laps here, so not really much time to get into the mood and get into the swing of things. But if we can keep this sort of place, and keep any points, to be honest, that's great for us. And Javi Shire in 12th place. That proves there's no fixed order in MotoGP. It's not like it's teams. It's purely based on the rider. And, you know, the results change every race, which is absolutely fantastic. But Pecco Bagnaia, clearly quicker than us, but we're going to keep him behind us. It'd be great if we could finish in the top 10, particularly after the poor nature of this episode. Bagnaia goes up the inside, but we just take a tight line into that corner, meaning we get to much better exit. But Dovi leads the race from Vins. That's trying to get Vinales and Rins' name all into one word for some reason. But where's Marquez? All the way down in 6th. Nakagami all the way up in 5th. That's a brilliant start for him. A little bit wide there, and Bagnaia does take the place in the end. But 11th place, still a 5-point haul, and I'd love that. God, that's KTM coming up the inside. It's visible in these slow corners. We are struggling a little bit, and Shireen trying to even go around the outside. So we haven't got massive pace in the wet, but certainly a hell of a lot better than we were in America. Halfway through the race, and we have consolidated this 11th position. We're not really catching Bagnaia, but at the same time, there is quite a train behind us, but not right behind us. We're not going to look behind because I don't want to disrupt my flow and my momentum. You can see there's a few coming behind us, but we've got Valentino Rossi behind us, I believe. Oh no, that's Franco Morbidelli. That's another Yamaha. Just looking behind us for just a second put me off completely. But Morbidelli's gone up the inside. We're going to try and get that position back, which we do for now. As you can see, Valentino Rossi is the next bike. So I can imagine Valentino will get past us, but I want to keep ahead of Morbidelli. I can deal losing a place to the GOAT, but not to Morbidelli. I really want to get these 4 or 5 points and stay where we are. It'd be a brilliant result. As I said, considering where we were in this last race at Kota and, you know, the start of our season, it'd be very good to get some points here. But Morbidelli's keep going for it, and it looks like he might have got it now. Shireen's actually got back past Rossi. What we don't want to do is push ridiculously hard so that we fall off the bike. We're trying to not to do that. We do push Morbidelli a bit wide. It's a little bit cheeky, but he just keep the position for now. But we've got the inside line, better acceleration. He's going to brake a little bit later. We've got room up the inside. He leaves a bit of room. That's a brilliant battle we're having here with Morbidelli. Good defence and attack from both riders. Just keeping it on the track, and we are just behind him. It's clear we've got more pace than him out the corners, but he likes to brake later, so it's one of those things and not very good round there. And to push it a little bit wide, Morbidelli's through again. It's got to be about 6 or 7 overtakes just on this lap, one-on-one. But that's a good pass. He's going to try for up the last corner, I would guess. That's a little bit late, but let's just try and cut it back in the inside. Don't fall off, don't fall off. But still getting good acceleration out the corner, and we take the place. What a battle we got on our hands here between myself and Franco Morbidelli. But I think, don't want to jinx it, but I think, I mean, he's right behind us. Again, he's going for it. This is crazy. Brilliant battle we're having here. He's getting it on the brakes, but we're going to try and lock that inside line. Make sure he's got to go off the track effectively to get past us. And I think now that is 11th place secured. Last lap time then, and unbelievably, are still scrapping with Franco Morbidelli. This is quite incredible. Leave a little bit more room than we should have done there. And he gets the position. The one thing I'm focused on, I suppose he's finishing 11th. That'd be fantastic. Rossi's now got past him. That's going to be a bit trickier to keep the GOAT behind. I mean, we can be a little bit more respectful with the GOAT, which is going to be a bit of a problem. But the one thing, we want to keep these 5 points, and equally, we want to stay on the bike, for goodness sake. We just want to finish this race. We've raced really well. The guys in front have gone away. We haven't got the pace of those, purely because probably we were battling with Morbidelli so much. But some points, that would be absolutely fantastic. Just to kickstart our season just a little bit with a great qualifying and a great race. But Quartararo not doing very well. They haven't coded in very well because he's usually way up there in the top 10. Morbidelli, though, is scrapping with Rossi, it looks like. Unbelievable that Lorenzo and Jorge Mir are not going to score any points. And Valentino Rossi really has had such an up and down season. The 2 races he won, which I think he's won 2 races. The last 2 actually in Argentina and the US. Brilliant. And then in this race he's got sort of 3 or 4 points. And then in the first race he again got 3 or 4 points. So very mixed fortunes for Valentino Rossi so far this season. But we're going to come across the line, I think, with some points. Who's going to be the winner of the GP? It's very close within the top 10. And the winner is Andrea Dovizioso. I believe that's the first win for the Ducati team this season. Brilliant for them. But also on a Ducati bike. And finally bringing home his first points. We have scored 5 points in this GP. 11th place we come home with. And that is just great. Fantastic. Brilliant. A very mixed bag really there. Nakagami getting up to 5th. Wouldn't have expected that. Marc Marquez hasn't had the start I'd have expected him to have the season. Setting exactly the same lap for fastest lap than Maverick Vinales. Bagnaia 10th, as you can see, ourselves in 11th, but Rossi down in 13th. And Tito Rabat also getting a point for the team in 15th, holding off the likes of Lorenzo and Joan Mir. Very impressive there. And a great weekend for all. So that's our first points to the championship. That puts us up to 18th in the championship with just Miguel Oliveira, Abraham and Johan Zarco without any points. So that's probably been a bit of a longer episode. Hopefully it's not too long. Fingers crossed, it's about half an hour. I can cope with that. But if you guys have enjoyed the free race format, let me know down in the comments. That's something I'm quite happy to do, just to get through the seasons a bit quicker. But inevitably, it does take me a little bit more time to do. So if you guys enjoy it, it's well worth doing. But I think we'll call it a day there. We don't need to be going any longer than necessary. But a great way to end the episode after quite a dim episode for us. But a great one nonetheless. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I've been TIJ Game, and until the next time, thank you very much for your company today. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye for now.